Now we are able to answer questions. We have a few of them, and we have some people really active. Hopefully, we have time to answer your question. And if you don't mind, I will try to organize and to answer your question through our presenter, our specialist. Thank you to Florent Vince for his helpful question. And the first of those will be for the first presentation, and maybe Emily are able to answer the question. I will read the question for the people who do not have the question under their eyes. And the question is addressed to the Diepkloof project. How have the topic to address in the GIS been ranked? And then does it comes only from the steering committee, or does it comes from the concern of the public consultation? Is there a large gap between public concern and expert concern? So it's 3 questions in one, but by the end, how do you rank the question? How do you answer it? And is there any difference between the concern of the specialists we are and the question of the public? Thank you, Emily.
Thank you. First of all, I guess there was a confusion between the 2 projects that are developed by our consortium, because the question was related to Noirmoutier project.
Yeah.
There is also a scientific interest grouping for this project. It is at the prefiguration stage, but here I will focus on the channel side, so Diepkloof. The topics are addressed by the group first. The questions, topics are coming from the administrative authorization, and are related to the public debate and the evaluation of the EIA by the state services. So that's the 3 studies I briefly described in my presentation. And then the scientific council of the group will identify and define the other studies that are of interest, and the steering committee will vote to set up the studies and the budget related. So there isn't a real ranking of the topics, but the vote of the members will choose the topics to address by the group. And actually, the group steering committee includes representatives from the civil society. So, for example, we have Diep Maritime, which is, how can I say that? It's cities, mode. Maybe you can help me on that. What is Diep Maritime?
It's a local authority.
Yeah. So the members of this local authority can share some public concerns. And sorry, I don't know what I was talking. Sorry. So there will be these representative of the civil society can raise topics during the steering committee meetings, and ask the group to address these topics. So and actually the steering committee can ask to the scientific council if these topics are of interest, and if they can give more details about so new studies to develop related to these topics. And finally, so as I said in my presentation, there will be a local information desk at Dieppe. So the main objective of this desk is to share the results, both of the impact assessment and the own studies of the group. But it will be used as though to gather the public concerns and share it to the group members. So public concerns can also be given to the group and be transformed in future studies. Regarding the difference between the public and expert concerns, of course there is a difference, because I guess that the public is more interested, in what is visible, for example, the marine mammals, the fisheries, or the seabirds. And the experts express more detailed concern. They are the studies that the experts want are more related to detail, scientific detail. I mean, that's what we say in the different presentation. I mean, related to the metal in relation to the anode or the trophic web. That's this kind of, well, the metal in the anode is although quite a concern for the public. But regarding the research on trophic web, it's something that is not really understood by the public, so they don't have this kind of concern. But both concerns are taken into account, and I hope that the group will be able to answer as well to concerns by the public.
Okay, thank you for this detailed answer. Hopefully, Florent Vince will be okay with the answer, or obtain the answer he's waiting for. But please do not hesitate to ask questions if you want some more information. Maybe one added part of answer regarding this question and the difference between the scientific concern and the public concern. Every people who is in charge of such projects in 10 years have noticed that it could be a real gap between public concerns and scientific concerns. And for sure, we have to find the place to discuss with everybody, with the public, with the scientists, with the NGOs and so on, and let them to discuss. And maybe your project and the groupments you are in charge is the place to do so. So we are maybe doing the same on every project nearly, and maybe by the end, under the authority of the government, we will be able to share data at the national level with the help of such structures like France Initiative Marine to coordinate and to aggregate and to share information for both scientists and public concern. So thank you once again. I was pretty surprised in the past by the level of concern of certain public on the shoreline, and I'm sure today that we have still a lot of job to do with the local people, with the NGOs, with the people who ask questions, because sometimes we do not anticipate the question that the public have. So once again, thanks, and maybe we can go through the next question. Nicola, if you don't mind, you have a question regarding the anode project, and the question is, have you done a preliminary work on the effect of the potential deployment in France of the 6 gigawatt wind turbine project? And this is something like 600 wind turbines. We can discuss about that, but by the end and by 2028, we will have the perspective to have such deployment, and by the end too, in 2050, we could have 50 gigawatt, hopefully, maybe for the environment and the carbon release. We could have such a program in place, and what happened regarding the heavy metals, the rate for such deployment. And I ask added question to that. Do you consider that aluminium, as you mentioned, is naturally present at sea, and by the end, this is the more present metal on the sea crust, on the sea environment. So do you consider that native aluminium is heavy metal, as we used to say, such as dangerous metal? Thank you, Nicolas.
First, about the preliminary work, we don't have considered this option into the anode project because it just focus on some study sites. Just to notice that in the anode we have studied 3 different sites. So I've presented you Courseulles-sur-Mer, but we also have studied Groix-en-Belle-Île and Le Cat, which are the floating pilot site. But we just focus on one site on the anode project. However, it certainly is a good question to know what is the cumulative effect of several parts at the same time. About the aluminium, yes, it is I think it's the most present metal in the Earth's crust. If you remember well, it's 8% of the Earth's crust. So naturally, in the sea, it's present at high concentration. I've presented you what happened in the Seine estuary. However, if we look at the Australian coast, for example, I've seen an article where they described that they could find about 30 micrograms per liter naturally present into the water. So yeah, we have considered in the anode project the aluminium as a heavy metal that could be toxic. It's just an assumption to really perform the complete analysis, complete ecotoxicological analysis. However, the aluminium, as we have seen, do not have a reliable predicted no effect concentration because it's not classified as the dangerous metal, a dangerous substance, which is not the case for the cadmium, for example. We have a really reliable PNEC for this substance, and we have with the modelization we have shown that it's not even reached in the Courseulles-sur-Mer study sites.
Maybe one additional precision to give answer to Florent. I don't have in mind what is the result of such a survey, but because we have since 20 years the deployment of a lot of wind turbine in the North Sea, north part of Europe, do you have in mind such a study that can be run to notice the difference between the initial situation, if we can do such an initial state, but do you have in mind if we have noticed in the survey done by the North people, the North country who deploy such a project, do you have noticed any difference in the concentration of aluminium? Because mostly we have deployed sacrificial anodes for galvanic protection. But what we can also maybe say today that there is some change in the way we protect the structure, and we noticed that there is another way to protect and to use not to use sacrificial anodes. It's to use ICCP, so it's a current system with electricity, and we do not release aluminium or any other metals. So what we noticed today is that there is a kind of change because the technology is here, and because of this technology that can be deployed on wind turbines, we will see both sacrificial anodes and ICCP that will be deployed on the wind farm in France. But what I want to say that if some people around the table have some element to share, please do. What we can say today that we can't compare the effect of the two systems because they are two different in terms of low effect by the end on both situations. anodes, sacrificial anodes, and ICCP. But it's really, really difficult to compare both systems. And maybe next step for us to answer this question will be to run an R&D program that will be able to evaluate on one hand the ICCP system and then try to compare both. But that's the next step, and we still have a lot of work to do with all the people involved in such an R&D program. So thank you for, if you have some elements regarding the level of aluminium in the north part of Europe. But please, who, if any, has information.
I don't remember any elements, so I cannot complete your answer.
Well, what I've read is that there was no significant difference between the concentration that can be noticed before than after. But maybe there is locally some difference. For example, if you are just close to the anode, for sure there will be some difference between the open sea and your wind turbine. But what we have noticed too with Cherbourg program, that was limited to a very located area. And when I say located area, it's a couple of centimeters or no more than a meter around the anode in place. So the difference is very, very located, but there is some difference if you consider that with such big anodes and before dilution, you have some local effect. Thank you, Nicolas. I don't know if we have other questions, but the main one has been answered for trophic, for anode. Maybe
if I can answer to the questions about trophic.
Please, yes. It was the next one. I'm sorry, Nathalie, but I let you. Maybe I read the question if you don't mind. So the question was still from Mr. Vince, and what are on-site data that has been used for the validation of your model? Are the results comparable to observations done in other ecosystems with offshore wind farms, such as the ones in the North Sea? Have you been able to evaluate the uncertainty rate of your model? Please, Nathalie.
Can I have my screen shared?
Yes.
Illustrate that. So I've shared some elements in the two questions concerning traffic. This one and the one after about what we have to present about the project by Thomas just after. So to answer the question from Florent, we made a choice, which was to use all published information on the observation of northern sites, offshore wind farms, as input data in our models. So we did not take this information just at once. We modify it with the local experts of each trophic groups. For example, we worked a lot with Jean-Claude Dauvin about the benthic macrofauna or meiofauna, and to see how the observations from the North Sea or from other sites around Europe would be modified locally in the Gulf Seine. So this was the input data of our system, and we did not use them as validation data. On the other hand, what we had was local data on stable isotopes that we used independently. It was not input data in our model, but we could use them to validate the trophic levels in our system. So this is what I wrote down in the answer on the table of GoToWebinar. So we had a few months ago this paper published in Estuarine Coastal and Shelf Science. So I wanted to show you this this figure from this paper. This is a graphical abstract where you can see that from the model, we derived trophic levels for all the different species and trophic groups with mean trophic levels. This is what is on the x-axis, and then on the y-axis we derived some information about the trophic levels. The present, so this is in the present model, the current situation, and we have a validation with the trophic levels derived from nitrogen isotopes, and you can see that it's not perfect, and that for the moment, but it's quite good, we would say, so that the trophic levels are coherent between the model and the isotopic analysis. But we can also do better, especially around the microbes. And then what you can also see here is that you have error bars for the nitrogen isotopic estimation of the trophic levels, but not for the models. And this is ongoing work. We have a publication that should be accepted pretty soon. Quentin Nogues is the first author, and he transformed those EcoPass data, so those models of food webs from EcoPass method. He transformed it with a new another method called linear inverse modeling, which is a statistic method, and which allowed us to quantify also uncertainties to the trophic levels within the EcoPass, within the trophic model, the food web model. So this is my answers to the first questions, but it is connected to my answer to Thomas with the second question, where to find a link to have an idea about the study called Trophic. So this is the other link I gave. So if I show you what you have when you click on this link, it is a report of recommendation that we wrote. So it is a book you can have from France Énergie Marine. That's their France Énergie Marine edition. Emma Arrhenius is our first author who wrote down the report with all the other co-authors being the collaborators of the project. And from this, we gave a summary of everything that was realized in the project. Most of it is published now, but not all. We still have a few papers under evaluation, but it's already a nice resume of what was done. So, for example, we can you can have here the first results from EcoSpace. You have the first simulations in time, which are presented, the maps of the different biomasses in the model, what was done with isotope analysis. This model, which is the linear inverse model, which should soon be published in Ecological Indicators journal, etc., etc. And then at the end of it, in a second part, you have all the recommendation we derived from those studies for future monitoring, and also with this idea that it's important that we go further than what is in the law for ecosystem impact assessment, in order to better understand not only separately the effect on the different items in the ecosystem, but also that we have a view of the functioning of the ecosystem, so using those ecosystem models and studying cumulated impacts with other impacts, and especially climate change. So all this is presented in the report written by Emma Arrhenius with all the trophic collaborators in the trophic project.
Thank you, Nathalie. Thank you so much for this very useful answer. What I want to say regarding the perspective of such a program as Trophic, it's just for me a kind of beginning of the story, because definitely we nowadays have a new approach that is an integrated one. with a link on all the compartments. So it's really important to understand that the model don't give you the immediate answer on a question. It's predictive. It's the way to run a scenario. It's a way to understand better the different action, as mentioned, as cumulative, as synergic way to understand the effect of our program on the ecosystem. So what is relevant with this project is to find a way to put all together the compartments with the marine mammals, the seabirds, the activities, the benthic issues, and then we are able to understand what's happened all together, because this is not in a single way you can understand all the compartments that can interfere together.